Welcome to the Life Rocks podcast. In this podcast, we explore how nature, science, education, and culture can benefit all children and future generations. This is a show for educators, parents, mentors, and anyone interested in making the lives of our children, families, and communities better. So sit back, take a breath, and enjoy the show. And now for your host, Asher Cloran.
Hello and welcome everybody to the Life Rocks podcast. I'm your host Asher, and today I have the wonderful Carla Ward with me. I'm excited to have her on because she's an early childhood educator and founder of the Early Learning Foundations, which is a business dedicated to the education and enhancing the work of early childhood educators. She's held a variety of roles in the education fields for more than 17 years. Carla is a certified wonder-based educator and brings a sense of wonder and passion into every aspect of her business, from hosting the Everything ECE podcast to workshop development to digital course creation, as well as running a full-time online tutoring business that ranges from early learning through to the teenage years. Carla loves to share actionable and inspiring ideas with fellow educators in both in and out of the classroom to help support professional practices in early childhood education. So thanks so much for coming along. Carla, you are in the States today, so end of your day, start of my day, but always happy to chat to wonderful educators like yourself trying to make a difference. And I've checked out your work, your podcast, had to flick through some episodes that are really great, different little topics that are super helpful for parents and teachers. You're a vibrant energy in the space of early childhood and really passionate about what you do. So yeah, I'm really keen to have a chat about all things early childhood education and sort of the state of the play of what we're seeing nowadays and where we want to take things as educators. We both share a very similar mission, the Life Rocks mission and the Carla Ward or the early childhood education mission is very similar. So how are you today?
I am fantastic. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm so glad, even though despite our time changes between Canada and Australia, being on opposite sides of the world, we're still able to connect. And regardless of being on opposite sides of the world, we still have a common goal about educating children, and that is getting them outside.
100%. I did say the States in my intro there. I got confused. Canada, obviously.
Close enough. It's a heck of a lot closer than Australia.
Yeah, awesome. And outdoors in Canada, that's sort of the other place to be besides Australia, really, isn't it? The great outdoors, so present.
It is. And right now we're in our summer. You're heading into your winter, but I think our winters are very, very different.
Yeah.
Our winters consist of a lot of snow, which does restrict some of our play, but not as much as people think.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely. And not even just being outside, it's getting nature into hands of children, whether it's in the classroom or outside the classroom, and playing.
Yeah. And how do we do that nowadays when the screens are getting pushed more into the classrooms, the screens become the babysitter and the parent and the educator, and it's so easy for parents to obviously pop their child in front of a screen, never easier than it has been nowadays. Where do you start as an educator working, in early childhood to bring that about into the classroom for starters?
Such a great question, because there's a time and place for technology. I run an online tutoring business. I am the first person to tell you that I love technology. There is so much to learn from technology, but there has to be a balance.
Yeah.
And yes, it is easier to put your child in front of a device short term. It is not easier long term, because what lands up happening is the fight to get online become greater. So a child that has boundaries and limits with their technology, so let's say half an hour a day, Because let's say it is not realistic in 2022 to say my child's not going to use technology.
No.
If you have access to it, it is just not realistic. It would be like me saying, okay, I'm not going to look at Instagram today.
Yeah.
I know my habits. I like my morning coffee with my Instagram. So it's about setting boundaries. And when children know their boundaries, their job is to push those boundaries. Our job is to keep them in place.
Nice. So
we have to give that warning. In 5 minutes, iPad goes away.
Yeah.
And we have to follow through. Because when they say, no, I'm in the middle of the game, or so-and-so's about to, what's that silly game? Among Us. Oh my God. So anything like that, no, 5 more minutes. No, I'm about to get to the end of no, I gave you a 5-minute warning. It's done. Because as soon as children know that 5 minutes and when time is, let me rephrase that. As soon as they know that the time is up is negotiable, good luck to you the next time you tell them time is up. Right? So it really is about boundaries. And when children know where boundaries are for everything, there's that sense of safety. And so you're not helping children by letting them have limitless time on technology, because it does become an addiction. And coming out of a pandemic, we are all a little bit more reliable on our social media, our iPads, our TV, our Netflix. My God, I've never binged so much than I have in the last 2 years. So it's using technology for a purpose and then having time limits. And the other piece is that there should be more hands-on play than technology. Technology is not playing.
Totally. And so just for devil's advocate's sake here, like I hear the parent out there that says, yeah, but it's so easy to just give them the iPad and I don't get any time in my day because I'm cleaning the house and I'm busy and blah, blah, blah. And, you've heard all of the excuses, yeah?
Sure have.
I've heard all of the excuses. What do you say to those parents, or do you just put them in the too hard basket?
They're not wrong. It is easy, and parents are busy. Life is busy, and you can only fight so much. I mean, I have a parent that I tutor for. She has 4 children, and her husband works nights. The poor woman is outnumbered.
Yeah.
So of course she's going to turn to technology to help her out, because she's trying to put the littlest one to sleep. And she's got the 13-year-old banging on the door because she's taking away his iPad. Like, there is compromise. You have to do what's right for you in your family situation. But you also have to make it a goal to reduce the time. So if your kids are on technology, let's say 6 hours a day, let's say you homeschool and you are doing an online program. Then your children are playing YouTube or Roblox or something like that. And let's say they really are online for 6 hours a day. It is unrealistic to say to your children, okay, now it's going down to half an hour a day.
Yeah.
Then you're going to have problems.
Totally.
And you are going to cave as a parent because it's too much. Like that. I mean, children are smart and they are negotiators and they are relentless sometimes. They will just keep going. They have nothing to lose.
No.
You have your sanity to lose.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So they will keep going until you either lose it and give them back the iPad, or you land up in tears. Those are really the only 2 options that it's going to go.
Or
you start small.
The sheets and do something you're proud of. So
exactly.
I like that approach.
Yeah. And then, but to counter it, it's not just, I'm going to take the iPad away. You have to give an alternative. If your child is not a child that plays, because there are some children, they don't know what that means to play.
Got you.
You have to ease them in. And there is so much research out there about the benefits of a child being bored.
Mm-hmm.
So when a child says, I'm bored, it's not your job as the educator. It's not your job as the parent to entertain them. You're not a clown. That's not your job.
Yeah.
Your job is to support them and say, here are some options. Or if your child is verbal enough, say, what can you do to fill your time?
Yeah.
Well, let me play Roblox. Roblox isn't an option right now.
Yeah.
Do you need some help? But again, that takes time. So you have to make it work into your family's schedule. But it does pay off in the long run.
Yeah, the long run. That's such a good point. Like easy trades in the moment with technology. And I think that's basically how it's designed, yeah. It gives us quick fixes, quick hits. We want to know something, we've got it. It's right there. But that element of boredom does come in when we're left to gestate with our own thoughts, ideas, feelings, and children left to their own devices. Without devices, they are going to come up with things, but unless they're ever given that space of boredom, they won't get to explore that side of themselves, that slower side, the space between the thoughts.
Exactly. And the creativity that comes out when a child is bored and given the opportunity to explore is unbelievable. They are never, yes, you can build stuff in Roblox. Yes, you can build stuff in Minecraft. And again, I play these games with some of my students. I'm not saying these games are bad.
No.
But the transformation that happens when a child is given some pillows, a blanket, and some blocks, and they build a fort, and then they invite their siblings into that fort, and suddenly let's have a tea party in this fort, and let's watch movies in the fort. That's when the technology can make its way into the play. But the child has already done the work. But it is short-term pain. And when I say short-term, I mean this could be months of pain for a parent. I really do acknowledge that teaching a child to play when they've been on technology for so long, it's not easy. But the long-term gain is a child that is creative, a child that is independent, a child who learns to be a critical thinker, a child that learns patience, and a child that learns that not everything is self-gratification. Right? Or instant gratification, I should say. Because I don't know how old you are, but when I grew up with dial-up internet.
Yeah, I'm 30, right. So I remember the noises. Beep, beep, beep,
yeah,
beep, beep,
and
beep,
God forbid your sister picks up the phone while you're in the middle of something, right?
Right, yeah.
So, and I still, as an adult, get frustrated when my internet crashes.
Yeah,
and
not
these,
nice.
Right? And these children today, they don't know what it's like to wait. Right? I can order from Amazon right now, and it will be here tomorrow morning when I wake up. Like, we are very much becoming an instant gratification generation, and we are so fortunate. But you still have to learn patience, right? Not everything is going to come easily. Learning does not come easily. And from tutoring, I mean, I can see it. My students get frustrated when they don't understand something right away.
Yeah.
Right? So that is where play comes in, right? Playing builds the patience.
That's great. And it really speaks to how the modern world's gotten so far ahead of itself. We're having to reverse engineer all of these simple, normal human things. And, you know, it's funny that it made me smile, the idea that adults are now having to teach children how to play. You know, conscious adults who can see the problem, like yourself or myself, and go, hey, you know, like, life's full, it's awesome, life rocks, life is the best. And and we've got so much to learn, so much fun to have. So we can see it because we've sort of been through, you know, all of the different mindsets. But now the children are stuck in this paradigm of instant gratification and low dopamine and not knowing how to actually play themselves. It seems insane that a child doesn't know how to play, but this is kind of the state we've ended up in. And it's to do with the products, it's to do with the technology, it's to do with our focus on certain types of learning and not others. Just to our audience, because I know that you're very involved with interactive play and loose parts play. Can you describe from your perspective why loose parts play, interactive play, playing with the physical world, experimenting, why that's a lagging part of education nowadays, and how it can benefit all of these things, like, you know, our learning, our playfulness, our development as a child?
Absolutely. So in our childcare programs, this interactive play is naturally happening because early childhood educators are trained to already have these loose parts, these physical blocks in their childcare centers. But
Yeah.
what happens is when our children go off, even to kindergarten in our public systems, here at least in Canada, and grade 1 and up, there's suddenly this idea of academics. And I definitely have a different interpretation of academics to what some may. So here, academics is, do you know how to add? Do you know how to subtract? Do you know your basic worksheet work? Can you read?
Yeah.
Can you write? All important things for life. Absolutely. However, there is nothing that proves that a child writing math questions over and over and over again is better than a child playing and manipulating and understanding what it means to have a quantity of 2, what it means to have more than your friend. So if your friend has 5 blocks and you have 2 blocks, you may only be 3 years old, but trust me, that 3-year-old knows that he has more than his friend. And but if you write the number 3 and you write the number 2, that means nothing in terms of quantity. So children need to understand numbers long before we start making them write down 2 + 2 is 4, because all they know is 2 + 2 = 4, but they have no concept of what that means.
Yeah.
So that play piece, they're going to bring that in. They're going to bring the math in naturally. They're going to bring the science in. They're going to bring the writing in. When they're in the dramatic center, they write their grocery lists. They write their what do we need lists. So the writing will find its way in.
Yeah.
Right? So definitely loose parts, manipulatives, block play, all need to make their ways into the higher grades.
Awesome. Yeah, it's so true. And whenever in my school life I was given something creative, something practical, something to link abstract concepts to, I remembered it. It was an unforgettable lesson.
100%.
So year 7 at the Steiner School, we were learning about trigonometry. So, angles and pulley systems and this kind of thing. And we hauled a rock out of a creek bed using ropes and pulleys to learn about trigonometry. It's the only trigonometry class I remember.
That is amazing. And right there, it's hands-on learning.
Yeah.
And you weren't little. I don't know why there's this concept that suddenly we have to switch to talking at children when they get to school, or just writing on the board and expecting them to know. Here, part of our curriculum, our children have to read, like obviously.
Yeah.
But a lot of our schools have removed spelling. A lot of them have removed just writing is joyful. Like reading should be fun.
Yeah.
And most of my students hate it because it has become a chore. Somewhere along the way, that love of reading and that storytelling got lost. And storytelling has been around for centuries. There is no reason why stories should not be enjoyable. Yep. But we are sucking the fun out of learning.
Yeah. And I think it's really interesting for people out there who maybe don't know the different curriculums that are written out, but early learning is very focused around experiential play, developing the senses, developing the emotional senses, the safety, the belonging, and the wonder and the joy and the astonishment of the child. And then it's somehow they're like, okay, that's important until 6. And then when we go to kindergarten, okay, that's done now. We've done the sensory development. Now it's just cognition, reading, writing, math, science, worksheets, all the way through to year 12 or whenever you finish. And then on into the university where it's the same, just more of flogging the cognitive horse, and then into the workplace and good luck.
Right. And it's infuriating because it's like when we say, okay, you're going to big school. Well, nuts to you, because they need to stop looking down on play as if it's, okay, well, you've wasted your time for the first few years of your life and you got to play, you got to have fun, and now let's get down to business. And what they're not understanding is play is the business of children. Play is their learning. Play is those children going to work every day.
Yeah.
And if we allowed that love of learning and that curiosity and wonder to continue through to grade 12, to university, all the way, the number of happier, well-adjusted adults would be significantly higher.
Yeah.
The number of people who choose careers that they love, not the careers that they think they should be doing, would be much higher. Because this is what I'm finding. So we have a course here for grade 10 in Ontario, and it's called Career Studies.
Yeah.
When I absolutely hate this course.
Yeah, true.
It is so badly designed, but that's okay. But my grade 10s will finish this course, and I'll say, okay, what did you learn?
Yep.
And the last student that took the course, she goes, I don't know. I said, well, did they tell you how to network on LinkedIn? No. Did they tell you how to, communicate to people on Instagram and like how to, build a business? No. She goes, but my personality is orange.
Oh,
what
wow.
the hell does that mean? She goes, well, it means I'm extroverted. Okay. So did they tell you what career is best for you with an extroverted personality? No. I'm like, okay, so you've wasted 6 months of the year. Great. But what I always ask my students is, well, what do you like to do? What do you love to spend your time doing? And most of my high school students right now, and I am noticing a shift as I work with more students, but most of them actually can't tell me what they love.
Mm.
And that is heartbreaking because these children think, so the number of students that say, well, I'm going to go get a business degree. Great. I run a business. Yeah. I can help you. What kind of business do you want to do after you've graduated?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. Maybe sales. What do you want to sell? I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay. So why are you going to university for 4 years for a piece of paper if you don't know what you want to do?
Yeah.
Like we need to bring back this love of life.
Yeah. Yeah. It's totally become this subconscious march towards a destination that's just carved out because we've heard it somewhere along the line, but there's not that online spark anymore. By the time the child's gotten through the grueling process of high school and had a lot of the creativity stamped out of them, they're just like, oh, books, like I don't want to learn about anything. Just give me a break. Really.
Yes.
I felt like that coming out of high school. It took me,
as did I.
Took me a little bit of a crisis to realize, oh, okay, life is what you make it, and you have to, do your best and get out there. I'm interested to hear from you on if you were to create a class that was a subject that was taught at school, and it can be anything. What would you put in this class that everyone has to do once a week in order to help them come out the other side of high school knowing what it is, or at least having a sense of connection to what it is that they love? Like, how would you remedy that?
So this is my goal actually eventually to do, is to turn a high school classroom into how I used to run my kindergarten classrooms.
Awesome.
I think because their brains are developing again in high school. Like your brain is not fully developed till you're 25 years old. So there's so much we can support these students with. And First I would start with the environment. I would bring in fairy lights. I would bring in plants. I don't know why plants stopped coming into classrooms. There is so many health benefits. There's so many mental benefits of having nature in the classroom. But also I mean, I would teach an entrepreneurship class. I really would. And
Yeah,
I would
nice.
set it up with different, every day or every week would be a different job for children to explore. So we would do, let's do a cooking class. Did you enjoy that? Let's do a kinesiology class. Let's have people in that do these jobs. So like we used to, and I'm just as guilty when I used to teach kindergarten was we used to tell children, these are community workers. These are your teacher, doctor, lawyer, garbage collector, veterinarian. So at some point, children didn't realize there's so many other jobs out there. Right? I mean, I created my own job because I just don't fit into a box. So I would definitely teach an entrepreneurship class, but even if, I love teaching math, which is hilarious because my best friend even says, do you remember you in high school math? Like I hated math. And now it's one of my favorite high school subjects to teach. But again, even that classroom, I would make it not so daunting.
Yeah.
Like, let's make mistakes. Let's ask questions. There's nothing wrong with asking questions.
Mm.
Right? It comes back to that sense of belonging, that sense of feeling safe, that sense of being creative and risk taking, which, I mean, everybody is afraid to take risks. The outcome is sometimes bigger, but we've got to learn to take risks and be okay with the outcomes.
Yeah, it's a funny thing, isn't it? How the mainstream education has put this idea of risk into education, which is you fail the test, you get downgraded. You don't perform, we're going to put you down the bottom. And so there's this pressure built into the system right from the start of like, we're grading you against everyone else in the class. We've got this standard metric of performance, and unless you fit into that, you're AKA a dumb person or someone who's not the best. And it doesn't cater towards all of the different things that we can learn or do or experience in this life and be successful at. Like you say, there's all these careers that people can be totally successful, happy, well-balanced people in. But, we get given this kind of like limited range scope. A business person, a doctor, a lawyer, a teacher. But hey, entrepreneur, like that's a great class. Yeah, that was some of the people that really inspired me when I was in high school, for instance, like Steve Jobs. I heard, he didn't even go to uni and he just rocked up to lectures when he felt like it, and he learned bits of subjects that he liked, and then he ran Apple, and that was his thing. And I was like, yeah, that's really cool, like that guy's an independent thinker. But I didn't have any teachers at the time validate that for me. In fact, when I'd say stuff like that to my teachers at the time, they'd often be like, oh yeah, but he's an exception.
Hey.
Rather than looking at, well, what did he do? Like, let's not just like put him on a pedestal straight away and just go, yeah, that's just some genius level stuff. What did he do? Well, he broke conventions, and I think unless we're willing to break those conventions, you don't find out what life's about.
Well, and that's exactly it. And I'm 36, so I am growing up. But when you ask my students what I'm going to be when I grow up, they will tell you that Carla's going to be a millionaire. And then they always laugh, and they say, well, why? I said, well, people get to be millionaires, so why can't I be one of them?
Yeah.
And I am all for telling children they can be whatever they want, but I always add an extra piece. But how are you going to get there? Because it's great that so many of my students tell me that they're going to be YouTubers. But let's be realistic. It's a very saturated market. So you have to ask the question, okay, so what are you going to do differently? And what are you going to do now to get yourself out there? Are you going to do a YouTube video every week? Are you going to start writing scripts? Are you going to do interviews? So we have to, tell children they can be whatever they want, but we have to add if you're willing to work for it.
I really like that. Yeah, it's not just soothing the child and going, oh, well done, that's the best work ever. It's like, hey, you know, that must have taken a lot of work. And if you want to do something great, like, yeah, it's going to take work, but congratulations for doing the work, you know.
Exactly.
It's encouraging a work ethic rather than just the blind praise that you see showered from so many parents, especially. And it's not their fault. It's just the culture that we're raised in is to be nice rather than be truthful.
Exactly. And I mean, so my mom is one of my biggest podcast fans. God love her. She really is. She listens to every episode. And we've had some great conversations because she will listen to episodes and she'll say, I didn't know that as a parent. She goes, how would I know that as a parent? Because, you know, in the 80s, they didn't have podcasts. They had a parenting book. You were told one way to do it, and there was only one way to do it. So I don't ever want parents to get down on themselves when they hear a suggestion, because when you know better, you do better. But it's okay if you didn't know this before.
Now, for those of you who don't know, Life Rocks is not just a podcast. It is an education foundation centered around connecting children to the magic of nature through earth sciences. As a self-funded foundation and startup, we are constantly seeking support so that we can continue our great work. So if you feel called to donate to Life Rocks, please head down to the show notes and find the relevant donation link. We accept regular money as well as cryptocurrencies. We greatly appreciate you, our Life Rocks community. Now, back to the show.
Do you have children of yourself, of your own, Carla?
I do not. I have a dog and a cat, and that is good enough for me right now.
Well, look, me neither. I don't have children myself, but we're both obviously people who are super passionate about childhood and helping future generations be the healthiest they can be and be the best they can be. And in that quest, you know, we're here as support to parents and teachers who are dealing with lots of children and parents of their own children, to be that outside perspective, that fly on the wall that can read the papers that the parents didn't have time to read and read the books and do the study and work with the kids and stuff, so that we can come back and go, hey, like, this seems to be a good practice, and like, fair enough, you don't know it, you're a busy parent, but you know, this is our kind of role to pass on that good info and improve the culture around it and be a support agent. Would you say yourself?
Let us be part of your village, right? It takes a village to raise a child. That's what we're here to do. Like, we are educators. That's what we want to do. It's about supporting the parents and the children.
100%. Yeah. So where do you see your work going in the next year? Like, we've both had to adjust around COVID era. You've got an entrepreneurial mindset. You do online coaching. You've got a shop where you give loose parts and resources. You've got the podcast going, so you're educating. How have you had to reposition in the COVID era, and where do you see early childhood sort of having to head or wanting to reposition towards?
Yeah, so I have kind of a bunch of businesses within my business, and the tutoring one had to pivot really, really big during COVID, because we were going to people's homes, but we pivoted online, and it has been a phenomenal switch for us. We honestly thought we were going to lose most of our students when we moved online, and everybody has stayed with us. But I've also been with my students. Most of my grade 12s, I taught kindergarten to, like way back when. So I've been with my kids a long time. But in terms of like my ultimate goal is I want to put early childhood education on the map. And COVID definitely shone a little light on this, is we do not get the respect as educators that we deserve. And I think, are forces to be reckoned with. So my goal, my mission is to elevate the voices of early childhood educators by having my podcast, having other educators on their podcast, but also encouraging other educators to start their own podcast, get them on Instagram, get early childhood educators launching their digital courses, and getting the reach beyond our ECE circle. So getting on podcasts where we reach more and more people to say, hey, early childhood educators are amazing. They are the career that you should want to be in. And a part of me, this is maybe a bit of an ego thing. I know when I was talking to a tutoring parent about what their grade 12 was going to do, I said, your kid would make an awesome early childhood educator. And she had the nerve to say to me, yeah, but I want my child to be a real teacher.
Oh.
And I am like the last person to say that to. And
Yeah,
this
totally.
is nothing against teachers. I have some of my best friends are teachers, and teachers are needed. But early childhood educators, we are, other than the parents, we are usually the first contact with a child. We are setting your child up for social emotional stability. We are teaching them cognitive. We're teaching them that love of learning. And we're taking care of them while parents are at work. So we are that sense of belonging and safety. And you're entrusting us with your most prized love. And we're awesome. And I think more and more people need to hear us. And so that is my mission, is to put early childhood education up there with doctors, lawyers, and put them on the same level.
Amazing. I love that mission. And I'm happy to help in that mission as well, because I think early childhood is where it's at. It's the foundation that sets people up for life. If we can put some more energy into that as a culture and recognize it, then a lot of the issues that we experience as adults don't even need to take place. And
exactly.
I really think that as we're going forwards now with like the COVID, after COVID's happened, a lot's been put back on parents' plates to have that hybrid role between teacher and parent. So it is an opportune time for educators like yourself to step in and start giving that sharing the skills of an early childhood educator, because I think I've noticed that parents have been caught by surprise by the amount of work that it takes and the details and all of that, because so traditionally before schooling systems, parents would have taken on that role of mentorship and guidance and allowing their child to develop. But early childhood centres have become that place for a lot of parents, and a lot of what goes on there is somewhat esoteric unless the parent has a really good idea of it. So are you working with parents in any way more doubt nowadays to share on the skills of early childhood education?
Oh, for sure. And because I work 7 days a week tutoring, so I am constantly in contact with my tutoring parents. And because I tutor from kindergarten to grade 12, so much of it is coaching the parents and saying, you don't have to do your child's homework. Yeah. It is okay that your child did not finish their homework. Let them go outside and play. Great. And, if they need extra help, then absolutely sit down and give them the extra help they need, but give yourself some grace. Mm. And also, so much of it is we don't need to keep saving our children. If they don't know something, give them a chance to struggle. Yeah. Because struggling is part of the journey, and let them learn what struggling is like when you are close by, so that when they are older, they know how to cope. Yeah. Because the bigger you are, the harder you fall. And if you don't have those coping mechanisms when you're little, adulthood is gonna suck. Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So definitely it's helping parents give themselves some grace. I mean, a parent has to go to work. A parent has to get dinner. They have to do the laundry. They have to, be the emotional, social support for their children. There is so much on a parent's plate that, yes, sometimes you do have to give that technology. But sometimes you just need to give a hug, tell your child that they're okay, and let them go play. Yeah. And just stay out of the way.
Yeah. So where do you see parents interfering, and what are some of the major little points where you're like, yeah, overparenting there, pull back?
Oh, okay. So I would say this is my biggest pet peeve is the negotiating. I am all for compromising and for having a conversation with a child. But a perfect example is, as I mentioned, I tutor online. So a child is in the computer. I cannot physically help the child.
Sure.
And we start a tutoring session. My student does not want to do this. I've only met him once before. We are still developing a relationship. And mom puts 2 Oreos in front of him and says, "You are not allowed to eat the Oreos until Miss Carla says so." And the kid grabs the first Oreo and pops it in his mouth. And he just looks at me like, "What are you going to do about it?" And I said nothing. She goes, "Okay, you are not allowed to eat the second Oreo until Miss Carla says." And he grabs the second Oreo, the first one's still in his mouth, and he pops it in his mouth. And I just sat there and I was like, "Okay, are you done?" I said, "Okay, we're ready to get started now?" And poor mom was mortified. And I mean, I've seen parents even where they're like, "Okay, if you do a good job with Miss Carla, you get 15 minutes of TV afterwards." By the time this parent was done negotiating, their child was up to 40 minutes of TV, and I was supposed to take off 5 minutes every time I asked him to sit up straight.
Oh, wow.
I was not playing this game.
No.
This kid got 40 minutes of TV at the end because I was like, "No, we're going to do the work." So there's compromising and then there's negotiating, but there has to be a boundary because there are certain things where this is not the first offer. It's not a first offer. This is it. This is what we're having for dinner. This is what we're doing today. And sometimes we can pick our battles.
Yep.
But when children know that everything is negotiable, you are making your life so much harder. Yeah, it's short-term pain for long-term gain. And yes, it's easier to give in the first time, but the next time is going to be harder. And the next time might be, you've got to get to church. You've got to get to the store. It is not a negotiation.
Yeah.
And it is now escalated. So it really is about conversations, not demands, but at the same time, your child knowing hard deadlines, hard boundaries. Exactly.
So true. Such well said. And parents lose by a battle of inches, not in big leaps. And children are very, very good negotiators. They will drive it home because they've got nothing to lose.
Exactly. And like we said, you've got your sanity to lose, and you will.
Yeah, 100% will. And yeah, like you say, I think a lot of parents are trying to be the friend and the parent, and that's the result of lots of things. Society doesn't have clear boundaries anymore with the different roles. So and like you said before, a village to raise a child. Well, now it's just the nuclear family raising the child, and dad's at work and mum's at work and kids are over here. And then, well, of course, you just want to have some nice times together. So you don't want to be all boundaries, and we get it. But
exactly. And pick your battles. I mean, we were talking about like my pet peeves, and the other one is mess is great. And I think we try to control children to be like little mini adults sometimes.
Yeah.
And making a mess is how they learn. So again, setting those boundaries about where that painting can happen, where those markers can be used. Walls are not always the option.
Sure.
But it's putting those boundaries in place, but embracing the mess, embracing the creativity, embracing the play, and just having fun.
Yeah. No, I think that's awesome to set up a place for mess. And I see it go down 2 ways with parents. One is no mess, and applying strict adult rules to small children is always going to result in a lot of pain. And then the other one is mess everywhere, absolutely always, no awareness of that, and then nobody's happy because you're constantly living in an environment that just sort of screams like complete chaos. And
Exactly.
but the best of the balance is, hey, you guys have a playroom and you can draw on the walls and you can do whatever the heck you want in this space, and then
Exactly.
they're able to be free. Yeah,
Exactly. And it's called setting up a yes space.
yeah,
So regardless of age, it's whether they're babies or older, you set up a space that is safe, that has little to no limits, and let them at it.
yeah, awesome. And I listened to one of your podcasts, which was bringing science into the classroom more and through interactive play. And you said, the first step in your process there was, do you have a space, a science space, and somewhere where there's no carpet and, you can put water around and make a mess and this sort of stuff. And it's sometimes hard from the adult perspective to see that it's like, oh yeah, mess equals fun. And, having all of these loose parts around and in a disorganized way is like, that's fine for a child's mind to, they have to go through the steps of learning to organize that stuff themselves. So
exactly. And I used to freak out the preschool teachers at school because I used to have glass containers in my preschool classroom with 3 and 4-year-olds.
yeah.
And I mean, you don't just put glass out. You have to explain to the children that this will break. If it breaks, we'll clean it up, but then it's gone.
Yeah.
But I used to have glass all the time. The children would mix the colors with it. And I still to this day have all the glasses that I started with.
Amazing. Yeah, for sure. And I think something like that, even if it does break, you're getting that child to, okay, come and help me clean it up now with like a dustpan and broom, not like, oh, you've made a mess and get out of here, it's dangerous, and like just stand over there while the adult fixes it. Can you speak a little bit to risk and how, because you've been in early childhood for so many years, how you've seen the awareness around risk change and morph over the years with the different philosophies that come into it?
I sure can.
Yeah.
I will never forget the day a parent came at me because her child had slipped off a tree log. And I was very proud of these tree logs because we had just started introducing risky play. And I had dug these tree logs into the ground. They were ministry approved. They were stable.
Yeah.
And he loved these tree logs because this 4-year-old was learning to balance and he was learning to jump to the tree logs. And there was so much joy, but he did miss one and he slipped and he took the skin off the front of his knee. And mom came at me like a mama bear, as moms should. Their job is to protect their child. And my job was not to get defensive. My job as the educator is to explain the benefits of risky play.
Yeah. And
mom understood. She wanted those tree logs out of there. And I calmly explained that that was not going to happen. And a couple of weeks from then, I sent a video of her child being able to jump from tree log to tree log. And that was it. She saw it. But the first instinct is we want so badly, whether you're an educator or a parent, you want to keep that child safe. That's our number one job, is safety first. Yeah. But we go too far over and our instinct is to say, be careful.
Yeah.
Right? And that's not helpful. A child doesn't know what be careful means. So if they are jumping from tree log to tree log, we want to say, make sure you jump with both feet or get a little closer to the edge before you jump if we feel the need to intervene. We are better to keep our mouths shut and let the child problem solve. But be careful are two very useless words to a child. It means nothing. All they learn is, I'm supposed to be afraid of something, but I don't know what. So that part of risky play, it doesn't mean, let the child Tarzan swing off the playground and, do a loop-de-loop. Risky play is setting safe limits where a child can learn what their body can do without it being catastrophic to them.
Yeah. And like a scraped knee that's okay. You know, you're gonna get a scab, you're gonna look at the healing process, you're gonna feel a bit of discomfort, and you're gonna know next time, actually I'll be a bit more careful on this jump. I'll maybe ask someone of how they jump. I'll watch someone else jump next time. I've got the fear of the log imprinted into my knee now, and yeah, a bit of short-term pain for some long-term benefits of confidence and everything coming right back around. So yeah, parents can't teach a child how to jump. They can just give a few tips.
Exactly. And the one that always kills me is how many, I can't speak to parents. Parents seem to be more okay with this than some educators, but it's how many educators do not allow children to go up the slide?
Yeah.
That one is always a shock for me. And there's a great book called It's Okay to Go Up the Slide.
Nice.
And 100% it is okay to go up the slide. Again, we make sure nobody's going down the slide. That's the words we use. We don't say be careful because, again, be careful of what? Be careful of a bear. Be careful of, a flying bat. What are we being careful about? It's let's check to see if anyone's coming down. Nope, nobody's coming down the slide. Go on up.
Yeah. And I think educators in different areas would be concerned probably about them having to explain to a parent if the child got hurt, or the different, ramifications of that in the workplace. So I think when someone's got their career tied up to, certain outcomes, they're going to want to limit things. But that's sort of not the right path to take as an educator once we're looking at the research, we're looking at all of like what works, and yeah, risky play. You have to get about it. And if you're not, you're probably not someone yourself who takes risks in life either.
That is so true. And I will say I get the career part. I mean, it's your livelihood. Like, yes, we love what we do as educators, but it is a job and it is the thing that's putting food on your table. I mean, I love having children not wear shoes when we're outside. There's so many benefits of children connecting physically to grass and having that energy. But I've had it where I got in a lot of trouble at work because we had a child steal all the other kids' shoes and start throwing it at them. And it turned into a shit show. Like, honestly, there was no other words. And I got yanked into the office and got a really stern talking to, and children are keeping their shoes on now. And this is where I've now learned to have, and this is the part of being an educator and being a researcher, is having the stuff to back you up.
Yeah.
Because I can now show my board of directors when I was teaching, hey, this is why we do this. If you can explain your why, your board of directors, your presidents, your owners, your parents are going to back you up because they understand. When people don't understand, there's an element of fear.
Yeah.
Right? And a fear that you're putting children at risk. And that is our job, is to protect our young ones. So we need to have that research to back it up, to protect our own careers as well as protect the children and make sure that they're getting the livelihood that they deserve.
100%. Yeah. And I know you're right into the environment as, a big aspect of teaching, and improving all of these hidden factors in the environment that can inhibit learning and development. And I know we're at an hour today, and I feel like we could keep going, but I will wrap it up with this kind of question. What do you think are the main hidden elements in our teaching environments or home environments that are limiting factors for children's development and learning, that maybe parents and teachers are like, they need this why, and like the shoes is the perfect example where they're like, why would they take their shoes off? Like, shoes are good, they protect the feet. As where you're like, well, hey, did you know you get negative ions through the ground, which grounds the nervous system, and you get better development of the foot muscles, something like that. There's heaps of other reasons too, I'm sure, but what else are you thinking of
Plants for me, for
Yeah.
number one, there are so many benefits to having plants in your home, to having them in your classroom, just that exposure from a health perspective, but also literacy. Books do not have to be a chore. Books, magazines, recipe cards, they just can find their way into everything. In a classroom, they don't just need to be on a bookshelf. They can be beside the blocks. They can be with the Play-Doh. But anything open-ended, I mean, I love my loose parts, and I have a freebie. If anybody needs ideas for loose parts, they can go to elfoundations.com/loose parts, and there's a whole bunch of ideas for them there. And it really is just having things that are not being told what they are. So instead of having a farmhouse that looks like a farmhouse that is a farmhouse, give children blocks. And if they want it to be a farmhouse, it'll become a farmhouse. But if they want it to be a fairy castle, it'll become a fairy castle.
Yeah. That's awesome. And can you tell us a bit about the box that's coming on your website? So when I go to the shop and it says, find out more about the box.
Oh, so the play box. The play box is a open-ended subscription box.
Okay.
So it is full of loose parts. We do it quarterly, so it does match our Canadian seasons, so spring, summer, fall, and winter.
Amazing.
So it's themed, but it's not themed. It's more the colors for us. So our leaves change color in the fall. But it is just wooden natural pieces that could be manipulated any way a child wants. And we get sent pictures by parents all the time, and not once has a child ever used the blocks or the pieces the same way. And it is just magical.
Awesome. Yeah, it's like music, hey? You can't play the same piece twice.
You absolutely can't. And that's exactly it. It's just, if we step back as adults, it really is magical how capable children are when we butt out.
Yeah, for sure. Child-led learning. And it's going to take more of a stage in the future. I think.
Amen to that.
Just at the beginning. And really excited to stay tuned with whatever you've got coming, and love to experience the Playbox when that's coming out and have a look into that. And I'd love to get a soil kit over to you once we're launching that in September with our completely interactive soil-based learning that goes from preschool through to year 6. And like we've been talking about, it seems like a science topic, but we're teaching rhyming through it, we're teaching drama through it, we're teaching science, math, English, discovery. So, any one sort of natural thing of the natural earth can become the teacher of all things. And I think that's the essence of interactive play as well, is everything's contained within experience too.
And all without a worksheet.
All without a worksheet, yeah. The earth and life is the original classroom, and it's got all the materials. It's got all the worksheets.
Exactly. And it's going to mean so much more, and it's going to be so much more memorable in the hands of children.
Absolutely. Is there any one wish that you have for future generations of this earth?
For the children to find their passion. For everybody to find their passion, actually, and just live their passion.
Beautifully put. Yeah, and that when we were talking earlier, and I asked what would the one class be that you'd give to awaken that passion within people, and you said teaching kindergarten style classes to high schoolers. I think that's such a brilliant way to awaken that playful spirit again. And
that's just it. It's there.
Yeah. Get them back in touch with that the heart of themselves, what fills them full of joy, and yeah, there's a definite path to walk there for everyone. So
Oh, definitely. And just that curiosity, there's just so much to be said when you're curious about love. I mean, that's what travel is.
yeah,
Travel is us being curious about the world. And everybody should have the gift of curiosity.
yeah. All right, Carla, well, let's keep on sharing that gift of curiosity, and thank you for sharing it with our audience. And I'm sure everyone here's gleaned some wisdom today, and I'm sure we'll be back doing this again sometime.
Definitely. Thank you so much for having me on.
Absolute pleasure. And thanks everyone for listening. And remember, everyone, life rocks.
Thank you so much for listening to the Life Rocks podcast. If you enjoyed the show, then leave us a review. We'll be back soon with more inspiring content, and in the meantime, remember, life rocks.